Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. What today at the World Championship? So many massive results over the last couple of days that are crucial for the way the rest of this tournament is going to go down. Sentinels will play FPX tomorrow. How will they get on there? Lots of discussion from the Sentinels boys as to how difficult their run is going to be. But what about this upset? Esports versus Leviatan. I'm recording this intro after I've recorded a fair part of the video just because this happened relatively last minute as I was recording. I wasn't expecting an upset today, but that's exactly what has now gone through. What does that mean for Lev and for the rest of this tournament? Very much interested to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. First of all, this is one of the big talking points of yesterday on Riot Games effectively eliminating the content creation incentive program. So just if you guys are unfamiliar about this, there was an incentive program for content creation where the teams would be incentivized to create content around the scene, around Valorant, around the events themselves, the World Championship, etc., etc. And in exchange, they would get paid for doing so. This involved watch parties. So if your watch parties got to a certain number of views, then you would, get some sort of cut of this 400k, which was the maximum possible, and various other incentives for social media activations around the game and stuff like that. So this is why you saw, for example, G2 sign FNS briefly to be a content creator for them, because that was helping them get towards their incentives, so they would, be able to effectively pay for FNS to come on board by the incentives they would then receive by Riot for doing so. Now, to be fair, not as many teams as maybe Riot were hoping actually took them up on this offer, right? And generally, a lot of, some teams did, but some teams didn't necessarily, and maybe the incentives weren't quite in the right place, or whatever you want to say. But the rumor has it that Riot is going to just straight up eliminate this entirely for the next season. So that $400,000, if every team got that, which they wouldn't do, but let's say they did, it's like 19 million total. So Riot are trying to save money effectively by doing this. The other thing is that kind of got to me a little bit is the fact that the teams are still going to be expected to make content. I'm pretty sure there is still a requirement in their contract to make content around the league and stuff, but they're not going to get incentivized to do it anymore. They're not going to get paid, so their goals are going to be lower. And it's just one of these interesting decisions where Riot is making like millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars off these cosmetics and the sales and the game itself. And yet the amount of that money that actually goes back to the teams to try and make a healthier ecosystem actually is going down. I mean, it's one thing not to do this at all, but it's another thing to actually offer it and then take it away. To some degree, in exchange, they will raise the fixed payment from the digital cosmetic sales that they have that go to the teams. The other thing that as well got to people was that next year they're going to do another classic skin, which is what they did this year. So it's like, can you try and convince me this isn't like incredibly lazy? Because this year, every team got a classic skin and it was like, okay, cool. Like it was the capsule. People bought them obviously in massive numbers, but it was only a classic, right? And every year for the Champions bundle, they do the Vandal and, etc., etc. So why can't we get something else? I don't understand why it has to be another classic skin. Like at least the Ghost or the Sheriff or surely something else rather than the classic thing. I mean, what are they going to do? A classic skin every year? Like for the next 10 years? 10 different classic skins? All of them are like the Sentinels classic skins. They all look pretty much the same. I mean, there's so many teams, and many of the teams are different, or pretty similar color combinations. So are they not just going to look very similar again? I don't know. To me, this is kind of annoying. These, by the way, the numbers on the capsule sales comparisons. In the Americas, of course, you're going to find Sen, Lev, G2, and a couple of changes actually from March to August. We saw that Crew, they've made up some progress over the last couple of months. Loud have actually dropped down out of the top 5. In EMEA, you'll see a pretty similar trend between March and August when they actually release these numbers. It's been Fnatic top sales in EMEA, it's been PaperX top sales in the Pacific. Pretty straightforward, I think, on that one. And yeah, as we see in the Americas, Sen, Lev, G2, Crew, and then Cloud9. Those are your top 5 best-selling bundles of the year. And actually, we can see them for the other regions as well here. So PaperX, T1 Zeta, DRX, and Gen.G. We'll get to them in a second because it's pretty interesting, actually, how typically in most regions, the best teams, it correlates pretty well. That used to be the case for Sen, maybe not the case right now, but the fact that T1 and Zeta are over DRX and Gen.G is pretty impressive from those two teams, given the fact that, they're not even here at the World Championship. It makes sense given the region. Zeta's Japanese, T1 just a massive organization in general, certainly in Korea. In Europe, it's obviously Fnatic leading the way, Gentlemates as well, just because, big organization there. The fact that they're ahead of Carmine Corp, I think, is pretty damn impressive. That's obviously like a Target and crew over there. This is the Americas we touched on. And then in obviously the Chinese region, Edgewood number 1, Billy number 2 is pretty funny, I think, just because of all the talk about Billy Gaming and what they achieved last year and they're trying to achieve this year as well. Before we get into champions, thought it was cool to mention that BCJ joined Ocelot Sports. The plan, I'm sure, is going to be to try and win Ascension with M80, and they're not far away from going to Monterrey, Mexico to try and actually make that happen. But yesterday, a couple of big results. This was possibly one of the more telling ones for the tournament because Fnatic have actually looked really good over the last few series. I mean, if you look at the series they played for the last couple of weeks, I mean, they've won, what were they on? A 10-9, basically, series win streak in a row. They were looking really solid, Fnatic, but they came in against DRX, and they just got smoked really. Now, look, DRX, we know this is their modus operandi. They absolutely fry in the group stages. They will be untouchable in the group stages. They'll get to the tournament and they'll come top 6. That is the DRX way. If that happens again, I'm going to be mind blown, but hopefully it doesn't. I want DRX to go further this time, and I think they can based on this performance right here. Alpha tried his best. He had a great series, but it was Buzz, it was Mako on the other side, and they really got the job done. Abyss is an interesting map. I don't especially like it. Zekken doesn't especially like it. We'll see that in a second. DRX take this one 13-11, but the Lotus on Fnatic's map pick, DRX pretty much just dismantled them, and Hero had a bit of a rough one here. We haven't seen Hero on this kind of like stage yet, and I think that's kind of the point really, is that Heroes coming to Fnatic done a great job, but on this type of level, when the pressure starts to ramp up in these important series, that's when the cracks might start to show, and maybe they did show here, maybe they didn't. Intrigued to your thoughts, but yeah, as Boaster says, lost to DRX, they played well. Now there's 2 Korean teams that I want a rematch, of course, so Fnatic, I think they can still make it out of their groups, but not exactly going to be easy, as we'll see the bracket shaping up in a second, especially though Group B. The Group of Death continues to deliver. Heretics scraped past FPX in the first round, and FPX looked really good as a result. But Gen.G, the team that many were saying, wow, here they go, back to back, here they go, they're going to win the whole thing. They went down to Heretics yesterday, and this was an absolute banger series, right? I mean, the Abyss, again, a 13-11. This time it went Gen.G's way. The Lotus, though, was a 13-11 bounce back, and then the Binds, 13-10. What a result from Team Heretics, and we know that Miniboo was watching everything unfold in Shanghai, I'm sure wondering, like, well done Gen.G, you won, but if I was there, that would not necessarily be the case. I think Texture had a few moments which were pretty uncharacteristically poor out of him, certainly as the series went on, but really just great work across the board here from Heretics, Rians especially. So Heretics advance, they go into the bracket, DRX go into the bracket, and Gen.G go down to the losers bracket. But I wanted to share what FNS had to say on this situation, really, on just Sentinels in general, and whether they can actually turn it around, because FNS says maybe it's possible, but Zekken maybe is not so convinced.
Insane win for these guys, especially because it was so hard fought. They're into playoffs. Gen.G has to play Sen or FPX. If Sen beats Gen.G, that's probably in your head still not an upset, but that would be crazy. Or if FPX beats Gen.G. Now it's confirmed Sen is getting grouped. Nah, okay, think about it. Okay, wait. I'll for any Sen fans, okay, if they're able to beat FPX, a team that made Heretics struggle, this was like a struggle win for Heretics. So if Sen is able to beat FPX, technically, on a really good day, they can beat Gen.G. See or no? It's this that I'm worried about. It's this game that I'm worried about right here. This is the game I'm mostly like, because this would be a devastating one to lose, since they would get knocked out, number one. And even though to me this is like legit the most 50-50 game based off form alone, honestly, FPX currently are playing better than Sen. So I think, yeah, I don't know. Like, I was really impressed with the way FPX played. I mean, they've had a couple days to practice, man. They've had like 3-4 days of practice. we might see a different team.
This was Zekin giving his thoughts on Abyss, by the way, saying you liked B-site Sunset, double it and give it to the next map, because effectively both sites are, you plant the bomb, you run back, and then you try and play for the post-plant, which, you know, maybe isn't preferable. So there's some debate on whether Abyss is actually good or not right now. But this I thought was interesting, right? So Leviatan say, hey Sentinels, we beat Crew for you. Can you please beat Gen.G for us? As in, knock them out of the tournament, so we have maybe a slightly easier ride. But as Zekin says, you know, it ain't easy, right? Like, it ain't easy to pull that off. And that is the key point really of the day, is that Zekin and Sentinels, they're looking at their run, they're looking at their bracket, and they're thinking, damn, this is going to be a serious challenge to even get out of this group, right? Because FPX, I wouldn't say they're favoured to beat Sentinels right now, but it's a very 50-50 series, I would say. Like, the current form right now looks very good, of course, for the FPX boys. The way that they played against Heretics, the fact that Heretics took down Gen.G, that says a fair bit. But and even if Sentinels beat FPX, they've then got to play Gen.G. I also will feel terrible for FPX if they do beat Sentinels and then they lose to Gen.G again, because it'd be the same story as Shanghai for FPX, where they might just end up being the third best team in the world, but nobody's actually going to know. As I'm recording this video, it looks like Liv are potentially on the verge of going down to Trace Esports right now, because they lost the game 1 on the bind 13-10. That was very impressive. The Sunset, though, it looked like Trace were going to potentially run away with it, but Liv did bounce back. Aspas had a superhuman second half performance, but right now on the Ascent, it's 8-2, and I'm just watching it on the other screen, and yeah, I mean, FNS is mind-blowing right now. So yeah, let's see how this one goes, because if Trace take down the Leviatan, that's going to be a crazy result for the way the tournament's going to be looking right now, and there's been lots of talk as to, wow, you know, if Trace Esports get through as they've done, it's just going to be such a cool little upset. And this result has just been made official. Can you believe it? What an upset we have just witnessed here. Trace Esports taking down Lev 2-1. Let's not forget, it was not that long ago that Boostjo and others from the Americas were talking about the fact that the Chinese teams were never going to be in the correct position if they actually wanted to try and win against the Americas internationally, and they were too far behind, they were never going to be able to catch up, etc, etc, etc. Trace Esports, not even the team from China coming into this event with the most hype around them, right? There's obviously always talk about Edwards, there's talk about FPX, Trace Esports, Billy Gaming. Trace Esports are probably the least talked about Chinese team. They come into this event and they've taken down Lev, they've won their first round game as well, and I mean, this was not even close. They dominated the first half of the Ascent, then when it mattered, I mean, honestly, they even threw round 16 as well. They allowed King to get a 1v2 that he should not have got, and he nearly got it again in the round 18, but it didn't honestly matter. Like, the start of the rounds, the opening rounds, and just the team play from Trace Esports was way beyond what Leviatan put up here, and I honestly think like part of this is the fact that it's the teams that are playing against these Chinese boys, certainly Trace Esports, that, like, Lev were caught off guard. They were like, how long a second? How are we losing to these guys? There's no way. And by the time they figured out that actually, no, Trace Esports playing better Valorant, they'd already lost the game. So, absolute scenes in the B apartments here. And what do we have now? Because these are the results that we looked at a second ago. Trace Esports advancing as the #1 seed from Group C. That is mind-blowing stuff. Vitality go down 2-1 to Trace. Leviatan go down 2-1 to Trace. And, you know, as I'm about to say, like, it would have rather played G2. So I'm absolutely fascinated to see what is next in this tournament, because we expected upset somewhere, but I did not think that, you know, it was going to be from the lesser kind of talked about Chinese teams that were going to be delivering the absolute bangers. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. What does this mean for the rest of the tournament? Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.